Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth spin slowly below. The coffee in his hand had gone cold hours ago, but he kept holding it anyway. As commander of the United Earth Defense Force, Jake had seen many strange things in his 20 years of service, but nothing had prepared him for what happened on that Tuesday morning in 2157. The first sign of trouble came from the automated warning systems. Or rather, the complete lack of warnings. Lisa Carter, the admiral in charge of Earth's space defense, was reviewing routine patrol reports when her assistant ran into her office. "Admiral, we have a problem," the young officer said, his face pale. "The long-range sensors show something impossible." Lisa looked up from her papers. "What kind of impossible?" "Ships, Admiral. Massive ships. They just appeared in Earth's orbit without any warning. Our systems never detected them coming." Lisa dropped her coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but she didn't notice. She rushed to the main command center, where dozens of officers were staring at their screens in shock. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They looked like giant crystals floating in space, each one the size of a small moon. Their surfaces reflected light in strange ways, creating rainbow patterns that hurt to look at directly. There were 12 of them, arranged in a perfect circle around Earth. How did they get past our defenses? Lisa asked her chief of staff. "That's just it, Admiral. They didn't get past them. They just appeared. One moment space was empty, the next moment they were there." Jake arrived at the command center just as the first message came through. The communication screens flickered to life, showing the interior of one of the alien ships. The being that appeared on screen was tall, much taller than any human. It had 4 arms and skin that moved like liquid metal. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music mixed with thunder. "Greetings, primitive. Species of the 3rd planet," the alien said. "I am High Imperator Zixthil of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. You have been selected for integration into our great civilization." Lisa stepped forward. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the United Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful contact with your people." The alien's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand. This is not a request for contact. This is a notice of conquest. Your species will surrender immediately and accept tributary status within our empire. You have one of your planetary rotations to comply." Jake felt his stomach drop. "And if we refuse?" "Refusal is not an option. However, if you choose to resist, your planet will be cleansed of all life, and we will find a more suitable species to occupy your world." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Amy Rodriguez, the head of Earth's Intelligence Division, was the first to speak. "We need to know what we're dealing with. Get me everything we can scan about those ships." Over. The next few hours, the reports came in. The alien ships were protected by energy shields that could deflect anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could crack planets in half. Their technology was so advanced that human scientists couldn't even understand how it worked. "It's like comparing a stone axe to a nuclear bomb," Amy reported to the Emergency Council. "We're completely outmatched." Ben Hayes, a colonel who had fought in the Mars Rebellion, studied the alien communication patterns. Something about the way they talked bothered him. "They're very formal," he said. "Everything they say sounds like it's coming from a rule book." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "Listen to their language. Every sentence follows the same pattern. Every request is made in the same way. It's like they've done this exact same thing thousands of times before." Kate Williams, Earth's top expert on alien psychology, had been studying the recorded conversation. Ben might be onto something. Look at how the Imperator responded to our questions. He didn't seem to understand that we might have our own way of doing things. "So what are you suggesting?" Jake asked. I'm not sure yet, but I think these aliens are very different from us. They seem to expect everything to happen in a certain way. Maybe that's something we can use. The next morning brought more alien ships. They came in groups of 12, each group identical to the last. Soon there were over 100 of the crystal ships surrounding Earth. Each one was exactly the same distance from the planet, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Ryan Tucker, a lieutenant colonel known for his unusual tactics, volunteered to lead a diplomatic mission to the alien flagship. Most of the other officers thought he was crazy, but Jake approved the mission. "What's your plan?" Lisa asked him. "I don't have one," Ryan admitted, "and that might be exactly what we need." The diplomatic shuttle approached the largest alien ship. As they got closer, Ryan could see that the ship's surface was covered in complex patterns that seemed to shift and change. The shuttle was pulled into a docking bay by some kind of invisible force. The interior of the alien ship was just as strange as the outside. The walls were made of the same crystal material, and they glowed with soft light. Everything was perfectly clean and organized. There were no decorations, no personal items, nothing that seemed unnecessary. High Imperator Zixthul waited for them in a large chamber. The alien leader was even more impressive in person. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, and his forearms moved independently of each other. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire room. "You have come to surrender your planet," he said. It wasn't a question. "Actually, we have some questions first," Ryan replied. The alien paused. His black eyes blinked slowly. "Questions?" "Yes, about the surrender process. We want to make sure we do it correctly." This seemed to confuse the Imperator. "The process is simple. You sign the tributary agreement, and your planet becomes part of our empire." Ryan pulled out a thick folder of papers. "We've prepared some forms. Standard diplomatic procedure on our world." The alien looked at the papers with obvious confusion. "Forms? Oh yes, Form 27A for planetary surrender. Form 88C for population transfer. Form 156B for resource allocation." Ryan spread the papers across the table. "We'll need your signature on all of them." The Imperator's 4 arms moved nervously. "This is not how conquest usually proceeds." "Well, how does it usually proceed?" Ryan asked innocently. "Species surrender. We take control. The process is complete. But what about the paperwork, the documentation? How do you keep track of everything?" For the first time since the aliens had arrived, the Imperator seemed uncertain. "We have records. Systems. Everything is cataloged. Perfect," Ryan said. "And you'll understand why we need to do this properly. We can't just hand over our planet without proper documentation." The meeting continued for hours. Every time the Imperator tried to move things along, Ryan found new questions to ask. Susan Blake, his communications officer, had prepared a list of increasingly complex bureaucratic requirements. She asked about tax forms, environmental impact studies, and worker safety regulations. By the end of the day, the Imperator looked exhausted. His perfect composure had cracked, and he kept checking a device that looked like a crystal tablet. "This is highly irregular," he finally said. "No species has ever requested forms before." "Well, we're probably not like the other species you've conquered," Ryan said cheerfully. "We like to do things properly." The Imperator dismissed them with obvious frustration. As their shuttle returned to Earth, Ryan smiled. The aliens might have superior technology, but they clearly weren't prepared for human bureaucracy. Back on Earth, the Emergency Council gathered to hear Ryan's report. "They're not used to questions," he said. "Everything they do follows a pattern. They expect everyone to react the same way." "So what's our next move?" Jake asked. "We give them exactly what they're not expecting," Ryan replied. We give them the full human experience. The war for Earth's freedom was about to begin, but it wouldn't be fought with guns or bombs. It would be fought with the one weapon the aliens had never encountered: human creativity and stubborn refusal to do things the easy way. Kate Williams had spent her entire career studying how different minds worked. As Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, she had always wondered what it would be like to meet beings from another world. Now that it was actually happening, she wished she had prepared better. The problem was that the Zephyrians were nothing like what anyone had expected. Kate sat in her laboratory, surrounded by recordings of alien communications, trying to understand how their minds worked. After 3 days of study, she had reached a startling conclusion. "They're afraid of chaos," she told the emergency council. "Everything in their society is perfectly organized. They've never had to deal with unpredictability." Admiral Lisa Carter leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Look at their ships. Everyone is exactly the same. Their communication patterns never vary. Even their speech follows identical patterns. I think they've evolved on a world where everything was completely predictable." Jake Morrison studied the photographs of the alien vessels. "So you're saying they don't know how to handle surprises?" "Exactly. And humans are probably the most unpredictable species they've ever encountered." Ryan Tucker, fresh from his diplomatic mission, nodded in agreement. That would explain why the Imperator seemed so confused by our questions. He kept checking his tablet, like he was looking for instructions. Kate pulled up a chart on her computer. "I've been analyzing their responses to our requests. Every time we do something unexpected, they pause. They seem to need time to process information that doesn't fit their normal patterns." "So what are you suggesting?" Lisa asked. "We do more unexpected things. We confuse them. We make them so busy trying to understand us that they can't focus on conquering us." The next morning, Ryan led another diplomatic mission to the alien flagship. This time, he brought Susan Blake, his communications officer, and Danny Foster, a logistics specialist who had spent years managing military supplies. The meeting with High Imperator Zixthal started normally enough. The alien leader presented a standard conquest contract, printed on some kind of crystal paper. The document was written in perfect English, though it contained legal terms that seemed to come from 1,000 different planets. "You will sign this agreement," the Imperator said. "Your planet will become tributary world 2847 of the Zephyrian Empire." Ryan studied the contract carefully. "This is very impressive. But I have a few questions." The Imperator's forearms moved impatiently. "Questions?" "Well, for instance, what kind of pension plan do we get? Are there health benefits? What about vacation time?" "Vacation time?" The alien's voice rose in pitch. Susan stepped forward with her tablet. "We've prepared a list of standard employment questions. Item 1. How many sick days do we get per year? Item 2. Is there a retirement plan? Item 3. Can we file grievances if we don't like our working conditions?" The Imperator stared at them. "You are not employees. You are a conquered species." "But we'll be working for you, right?" Danny asked. "That makes us employees. And employees have rights." "Rights?" The alien seemed to be having trouble understanding the concept. "Oh yes," Ryan said. "We have very strict labor laws on Earth. We can't just sign a contract without knowing all the details." Susan began reading from her tablet. "We'll need to see your employee handbook, your safety regulations, your policies on workplace harassment." "Harassment?" The Imperator's voice was getting higher. "You know, making people do things they don't want to do," Danny explained. "That's illegal on Earth." The alien leader stood up suddenly. His crystal throne made a sound like breaking glass. "This is not how conquest works." "Well, how does it usually work?" Ryan asked innocently. "Species Surrender. We take control. The process is complete. But what about the paperwork? Susan asked. Surely you need proper documentation for tax purposes? The Imperator made a sound that might have been frustration. We do not pay taxes. Everyone pays taxes, Danny said firmly. How else do you? Fund your government? The meeting continued for hours. Every time the aliens tried to move forward with their conquest, the humans found new questions to ask. Ryan wanted to know about environmental protection laws. Susan demanded to see the Empire's diversity and inclusion policies. Danny questioned their supply chain management. By the end of the day, the Imperator looked like he was developing a headache. His perfect composure had completely cracked, and he kept muttering in his own language. This is highly irregular, he finally said. No species has ever asked about employee benefits before. Well, we're probably not like other species, Ryan said cheerfully. We care about the little details. Back on Earth, the humans were preparing their next move. Patricia Moore, Earth's chief legal counsel, had spent her career studying international law. Now she was applying those same skills to galactic law. I've found something interesting, she told the emergency council. The Zephyrians have their own legal code. It's called the Charter of Civilized Conduct. And? Jake asked. It's full of rules about how they're supposed to treat other species. Rules they're not following. Patricia opened a thick book. For example, Section 47 requires them to conduct environmental impact studies before occupying a planet. Section 92 says they must provide fair compensation for any resources they take. Section 156 requires them to respect local customs and traditions. Lisa smiled. So they're breaking their own laws? Exactly. And I'm going to file a formal complaint. The next day, Patricia submitted 847 separate legal challenges to the Zephyrian invasion. Each one cited a different violation of their own charter. The aliens, who had never received legal complaints before, didn't know how to respond. Meanwhile, Alan Price, Earth's chief engineer, was working on a different approach. He had been studying the alien technology and had made an interesting discovery. Their ships are incredibly advanced, he told Jake, but they're also incredibly old. Some of this technology hasn't been updated in thousands of years. So I think they've stopped innovating. They found designs that worked, and they never changed them. Alan pulled up a holographic display of an alien ship. Look at this. Their power systems are perfectly efficient, but they're also completely static. They've never had to deal with upgrades or modifications. What are you suggesting? I think we should offer to help them improve their technology. Jake stared at him. You want to help the people who are trying to conquer us? Trust me on this, Alan said with a grin. The next diplomatic mission included Alan and his team of engineers. When they arrived at the alien flagship, High Imperator Zixthel looked like he hadn't slept in days. Have you come to surrender? He asked hopefully. Actually, we've come to help, Alan said. We've noticed some inefficiencies in your ship designs. The Imperator's forearms froze. Inefficiencies? Oh yes, your power distribution could be improved by about 12%. Your navigation systems are running redundant calculations, and your communication networks could benefit from some compression algorithms. The alien leader's black eyes widened. Our technology is perfect. Well, perfect is a relative term, Alan said gently. There's always room for improvement. 4. The first time since the aliens had arrived, the Imperator seemed genuinely curious. Improvement? Of course. On Earth, we improve our technology constantly. Every few months, we release updates and upgrades. It's how we keep getting better. The concept seemed to fascinate the aliens. Soon, Alan found himself surrounded by Zephyrian engineers, all asking questions about human technology. They had never encountered the idea that machines could be intentionally improved over time. While the engineers talked, Nicole Adams was working on another project. As head of Earth's cultural exchange program, she had decided to introduce the aliens to human entertainment. The first broadcast went out that evening. It was a simple variety show featuring human music, comedy, and storytelling. The aliens, who had never encountered fiction before, were completely baffled. "This is not real," one of them said during a communication with Earth. "Of course it's not real," Nicole replied. "It's entertainment. We made it up." "You made it up?" "Yes. Humans create stories for fun. We imagine things that never happened and share them with each other." The concept of imagination was completely foreign to the Zephyrians. They had never encountered a species that created things just for enjoyment. Soon, thousands of alien scholars were studying human entertainment, trying to understand how humans could create something from nothing. The situation was spiraling out of control for the Zephyrians. What should have been a simple conquest was turning into the most complicated administrative nightmare in their empire's history. Imperator Zixthal called an emergency meeting with his advisors. "How many conquest protocols have been violated?" he asked. "All of them," his chief advisor replied. "The humans refuse to follow any standard procedures." "Have any other species behaved this way?" "Never. This is completely unprecedented." The Imperator looked out at Earth through the ship's crystal walls. The small blue planet spun peacefully below, showing no signs of the chaos it was creating throughout his empire. "Request instructions from the Galactic Council," he said finally. "What should we tell them?" The Imperator was quiet for a long moment. "Tell them we may have encountered a species that cannot be conquered through normal means." For the first time in 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire was facing. The Zephyrian Empire was in crisis. For the first time in their 1,000-year history of conquest, they were losing control of the situation. High Imperator Zixthal stood in his command chamber, staring at reports that made no sense. "Sir," his chief advisor said, "we have received 847 legal complaints from the humans. Each one requires investigation and official response according to our Charter of Civilized Conduct." The Imperator's forearms moved restlessly. "Legal complaints?" "Yes, sir. They claim we are violating our own laws by conquering their planet. Without proper documentation." "What kind of documentation?" "Environmental impact studies, sir. Fair compensation agreements. Cultural preservation protocols. The list goes on." The Imperator felt something he had never experienced before: confusion. "But we are conquering them. Why would we need their permission? According to Section 47 of our Charter, we must respect the local customs of any species we encounter. The humans say their custom is to question everything." Meanwhile, on Earth, Patricia Moore was just getting started. The Chief Legal Counsel had discovered that the Zephyrians took their own laws very seriously. Too seriously, in fact. "They can't ignore their own legal code," she explained to the Emergency Council. "Every complaint I file has to be processed through their bureaucracy, and their bureaucracy is massive." Jake Morrison looked at the stack of legal documents on Patricia's desk. "How many more complaints can you file?" "Thousands." "Their charter has over 10,000 sections. I'm pretty sure they're violating at least half of them." Lisa Carter smiled. "Keep filing. Let's see how much paperwork they can handle." The legal assault was just the beginning. Carl Hughes, a former government auditor who had joined the military, was conducting his own investigation into Zephyrian procedures. "They keep records of everything," he told the council. "Every conquest, every treaty, every administrative decision. It's all documented and filed according to their regulations. So I'm requesting copies of all their records. For review purposes." Carl had spent years navigating government bureaucracy. He knew exactly which forms to file and which regulations to cite. Soon, the Zephyrians were drowning in information requests. They want to see our conquest records. Dating back 500 years, the Imperator's advisor reported. They claim they have a right to review any documents that might affect their planet's status. Do they have such a right? According to Section 234 of our Charter, all species have the right to request relevant documentation. But, sir, we have over 50 million files. The Imperator felt his headache getting worse. Begin processing their requests. While the adults were busy with legal warfare, the younger humans were working on a different approach. Rachel Grant, a mathematics professor who specialized in chaos theory, had been studying the Zephyrian communication patterns. They think like computers, she told her research team. Everything follows logical sequences. They've never encountered true randomness. So what do we do about it? We introduce them to chaos theory. Show them that some things can't be predicted or controlled. Rachel began broadcasting mathematical concepts to the alien ships. She explained probability theory, quantum mechanics, and the butterfly effect. The Zephyrians, who had built their entire civilization on predictability, found these ideas deeply disturbing. This is impossible. One alien scientist transmitted back. Everything must follow logical patterns. Not in our universe, Rachel replied. Some things are genuinely random. No amount of calculation can predict them. The concept of true randomness was breaking the aliens' understanding of reality. They had never encountered a universe where some things simply couldn't be controlled or predicted. Meanwhile, Tony Clark was observing the alien fleet from his scout ship. The veteran pilot had noticed something interesting about their formations. They're starting to break pattern, he reported to Earth. For the first time since they arrived, some ships are moving out of position. What does that mean? It means their perfect coordination is falling apart. Individual captains are making decisions without waiting for orders. The chaos was spreading throughout the Zephyrian fleet. Ellen Ross, Earth's chief information officer, had introduced the aliens to the concept of modern communication systems. She had shown them email, instant messaging, and social media. You can communicate with anyone, anytime, she explained. No need to wait for official channels. The aliens were fascinated by the idea of instant communication. Soon, they were sending messages back and forth between ships, sharing opinions, and asking questions. Their rigid command structure began to crumble as lower-ranking officers started communicating directly with each other. Sir, the Imperator's advisor said, we're receiving thousands of messages from our own ships. They're asking for clarification on procedures we've never had to explain before. What kind of clarification? Everything, sir. They want to know why we conquer planets. They're asking about the purpose of our mission. Some are even questioning whether conquest is morally justified. The Imperator stared at his advisor. Our officers are questioning our mission? Yes, sir. The humans introduced them to something called philosophical debate. Now they want to discuss the ethics of imperialism. For the first time in Zephyrian history, their military was asking questions instead of simply following orders. The humans had introduced them to the dangerous concept of independent thinking. Helen Wright, the administrator of the lunar colonies, was working on another front. She had established a complaint resolution system that processed grievances from all the human colonies. We're receiving over 10,000 complaints per day, she told the Zephyrian representatives. Each one requires investigation and official response. What are they complaining about? Everything. The quality of the air on their ships, the temperature settings, the lighting, the food they're being served, the uncomfortable chairs in the meeting rooms. The aliens had never encountered customer service before. They didn't understand that humans would complain about everything, even things they couldn't control. How do we respond to these complaints? According to your own charter, You must address each one individually and provide satisfactory resolution. Soon, the Zephyrians found themselves running a customer service department for the first time in their history. They were completely unprepared for the volume of complaints and the creative nature of human dissatisfaction. The situation reached a breaking point when Troy Nelson, a veteran negotiator, made a simple request that sent shockwaves through the entire Zephyrian Empire. "I'd like to speak to your manager," he said during a diplomatic meeting. The Imperator's advisor looked confused. "Manager?" "Yes, your boss, the person in charge of this operation." "High Imperator Zixthal is in charge." "No, I mean his manager. The person he reports to." The concept of escalating to management was completely foreign to the Zephyrians. Their hierarchy was absolute. The Imperator was the supreme authority, and no one questioned his decisions. "The Imperator does not report to anyone," the advisor said. "Everyone reports to someone," Troy insisted. "I want to speak to whoever is in charge of him." The request triggered a constitutional crisis within the Zephyrian Empire. For the first time in their history, they were forced to examine their own power structure. Who was in charge of the Imperator? What happened if he made a mistake? How could decisions be reviewed or changed? The Galactic Council, which had been watching the situation with growing concern, finally sent a representative to investigate. Admiral Kixvar, a 4-star general with experience in difficult conquests, arrived with a fleet of advisors. "Report," she commanded. High Imperator Zixthal looked exhausted. His perfect composure had completely disappeared, and his forearms moved nervously as he spoke. "The humans are unusual," he said. "They do not follow standard conquest protocols. Explain." "They ask questions. They file complaints. They request documentation. They want to improve our technology. They share fictional stories. They complain." "About everything?" "They want to speak to managers who do not exist." Admiral Kixvar studied the reports. "How many protocols have been violated?" "All of them." "The humans refuse to surrender in any recognizable way." "Have you demonstrated our power?" "Yes, they were impressed." Then they asked if we had environmental impact studies for our weapon tests. Admiral Kixvar was quiet for a long moment. "Are they hostile?" "No, they are helpful. Aggressively helpful. They want to assist us in improving our conquest procedures." The Admiral looked out at Earth, spinning peacefully in the void. Such a small planet, causing such enormous problems for the most powerful empire in the galaxy. "What do you recommend?" The Imperator's voice was barely a whisper. "I recommend we find a different planet to conquer." For the first time in Zephyrian history, an Imperator was suggesting retreat, not because they had been defeated in battle, but because they had been overwhelmed by bureaucracy, creativity, and the human refusal to do anything the simple way. War was far from over, but the humans were winning through the most unexpected means possible, by being absolutely, completely, and unapologetically human. Admiral Kixvar had conquered 17 solar systems in her career. She had faced rebellions, dealt with stubborn species, and handled every kind of resistance the galaxy could offer. But nothing had prepared her for humanity. "Show me the documentation." She commanded. High Imperator Zixthal gestured to a wall of crystal storage devices. "All of it is there. Every complaint, every request, every question they have asked." Kixvar approached the wall. The storage devices stretched from floor to ceiling, glowing with soft blue light. "How many files are there?" "Over 400,000 and growing. They add more every day." The Admiral selected a random file and began reading. Her expression grew more confused with each page. "They want to know about your pension plan?" "Yes, sir." "They want to visit museums, see concerts, try human food. Some of them are asking about vacation packages." The Imperator felt his world crumbling around him. "We are supposed to be conquering them, Not taking vacations with them? I know, sir. But the crew members say they've never experienced anything like human entertainment. They want to learn more. The situation became even worse when Troy Nelson escalated his request to speak with management. The Zephyrian Empire's entire command structure was in chaos as they tried to figure out who, if anyone, had authority over the Imperator. We've contacted the Galactic Council, Admiral Kixvar told him. They've never received a management complaint before. Well, there's a first time for everything, Troy replied cheerfully. The Galactic Council, an ancient body that governed the Zephyrian Empire, was forced to examine their own authority structure for the first time in centuries. Who was responsible? When an Imperator failed, how could citizens appeal decisions made by supreme leaders? This is unprecedented, the Council Chairman announced during an emergency session. No species has ever requested to speak with management before. What do we do? I don't know. There's no protocol for this situation. Back on the flagship, Ellen Ross was teaching the aliens about modern communication technology. Her lessons had completely transformed how the Zephyrians interacted with each other. You can share information instantly, she explained. No need to wait for official reports or formal meetings. The aliens were amazed by the speed and efficiency of human communication systems. They began sharing ideas, opinions, and even jokes through their new networks. Sir, the Imperator's communication officer reported, the fleet is using something called group chat. They're sharing pictures of Earth and discussing human culture. Pictures? Yes, sir. They're taking photographs of the planet and adding humorous captions. The Imperator stared at his officer. They're making jokes? Yes, sir. They seem to have learned about humor from the humans. Humor was another completely foreign concept to the Zephyrians. They had never encountered a species that found things funny. Now their own crew members were laughing at things that weren't serious or important about Helen. Wright's complaint resolution system had evolved into something the aliens had never seen before: customer service. The Zephyrians were learning to handle dissatisfied customers for the first time in their history. Complaint number 47,892, she announced during her daily report. Ensign Zixcall from Ship 7 is unhappy with the quality of the lighting in his quarters. What does he want us to do about it? The confused alien representative asked. Fix it. That's what customer service is for. Customer service? Making sure people are happy with your product or service. It's basic business practice. The aliens had never considered that the people they conquered might have opinions about the quality of their conquest. The concept of customer satisfaction was revolutionary. Meanwhile, Danny Foster was revolutionizing Zephyrian logistics. His analysis of their supply chain had revealed massive inefficiencies that had gone unnoticed for centuries. You're shipping resources from one end of the galaxy to the other, he pointed out. Why not source materials locally? Local sourcing? The alien logistics coordinator seemed confused. Sure, every system has resources. Use what's available nearby instead of shipping everything from your home worlds. The idea was so simple that the aliens couldn't believe they had never thought of it. Danny's suggestions could save them millions of credits and reduce shipping times by thousands of years. He's right, the coordinator admitted. Our current system is incredibly wasteful. So why haven't you changed it? Because this is how we've always done it, Danny smiled. Well, there's your problem right there. The Zephyrians were discovering that because we've always done it this way was not a good reason to continue inefficient practices. The humans were teaching them to question everything, including their own traditions. As the days passed, the situation became more surreal. The Zephyrian fleet, which had arrived to conquer Earth, was now engaged in cultural exchange, legal disputes, technology sharing, customer service, and philosophical discussions. High Imperator Zixthal called another emergency meeting with Admiral Kixvar. The conquest has failed, he admitted. How can a conquest fail? Either you control the planet or you don't. That's just it. I don't know if we control it or not. The humans say they're willing to work with us, but only if we follow their procedures. What? Procedures? All of them. Legal procedures, safety procedures, environmental procedures, customer service procedures. They have procedures for everything. Admiral Kixvar studied the reports from her own staff. Her ships were experiencing the same problems. Crew members were asking questions, requesting better working conditions, and demanding explanations for orders. The humans are changing us, she realized. Yes, and I'm not sure if that's good or bad. The Admiral looked out at Earth, still spinning peacefully in space. What do the humans want from us? That's the strangest part. They don't seem to want anything except for us to do things properly. They want forms filled out correctly. They want questions answered honestly. They want everyone to be treated fairly. And if we do all that, then they'll be happy to work with us. They're not trying to defeat us. They're trying to improve us. For the first time in their conversation, Admiral Kixvar smiled. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. The Zephyrian Empire was facing its greatest challenge ever, the possibility that they might need to become better than they were. The humans weren't trying to destroy them or drive them away. They were forcing them to examine their own flaws and improve themselves. It was the most terrifying and exciting prospect the Empire had ever encountered. And health benefits, and vacation time, and workplace safety regulations for a conquered species. They insist they are employees, not slaves. They cite labor laws from their homeworld. Kixvar closed the file and selected another. They are complaining about the temperature in your meeting rooms? Yes, they say it is too cold. They have requested space heaters and warmer blankets. You gave them blankets? We had to. According to Section 156 of our charter, we must provide reasonable accommodations for cultural differences. The Admiral stared at the Imperator. You gave blankets to people you are trying to conquer? They were very polite about it. They said please and thank you. Meanwhile, on Earth, the humans were expanding their campaign. Stephen Long, a communications specialist, had been monitoring Zephyrian internal messages. What he discovered changed everything. They're talking to each other, he reported to the Emergency Council. The alien ships are sending messages back and forth without going through official channels. What are they saying? Jake asked. They're asking questions. About the conquest. About their orders. About whether what they're doing is right. Lisa Carter leaned forward. They're questioning their own mission? More than that, they're questioning their entire empire. Some of them are saying they've never thought about why they conquer planets. The humans had introduced the Zephyrians to the most dangerous concept in the universe, independent thinking. For 1,000 years, the aliens had simply followed orders without question. Now, for the first time, they were asking why Dr. Rachel Grant had been broadcasting educational content to the alien fleet. Her lessons on chaos theory and probability had evolved into something much more complex. Today we're going to talk about free will, she announced during her daily transmission. The response was immediate. Thousands of alien scientists tuned in to hear about concepts they had never encountered. Free will is the ability to make choices that are not predetermined, Rachel explained. It means you can decide for yourself what to do, even if someone else tells you to do something different. The idea was revolutionary to the Zephyrians. They had never questioned orders or made independent decisions. Everything they did was part of a larger plan, controlled by their superiors. But how do you know what choice to make? One alien asked. You think about it. You consider the consequences. You decide what feels right to you. What feels right? That's the hard part. You have to figure it out for yourself. The conversation continued for hours. The aliens were fascinated by the concept of personal choice. They had never realized that other species could think for themselves. While Rachel was teaching philosophy, Patricia Moore was winning the legal war. The Zephyrian bureaucracy was collapsing under the weight of her legal challenges. They've assigned 50,000 clerks to process our complaints, she told the emergency council. They're working around the clock, but they can't. The end came not with explosions or surrender ceremonies, but with a simple piece of paper. High Imperator Zixthal sat in his crystal throne, staring at the document he had just signed. It was his resignation letter. I cannot continue in this position, he had written. The complexity of managing human relations exceeds my capabilities. I respectfully request reassignment to a less challenging role. Admiral Kixvar read the letter with amazement. You're quitting? The humans have made it impossible for me to do my job, Zixthal replied. Every decision I make requires 17 forms, 5 environmental studies, and approval from 3 committees that don't exist yet. But you're the Imperator. You have absolute authority. Not according to the humans. They say I need to follow proper procedures. They've created an organizational chart that shows. I report to someone called the People. Kixvar studied the chart the humans had prepared. It was unlike anything in Zephyrian history. Instead of a top-down hierarchy, it showed authority flowing upward from citizens to leaders. They want you to be accountable to the people you govern? Yes, and they want regular performance reviews. They've scheduled my first evaluation for next week. The concept of holding leaders accountable was revolutionary in Zephyrian society. For thousands of years, their rulers had been above criticism or oversight. Now the humans were suggesting that leaders should answer to their followers. On Earth, the Emergency Council was meeting to discuss the aliens' unexpected offer. Stephen Long had intercepted a communication from the Galactic Council that changed everything. They want to hire us, he announced. Jake Morrison nearly dropped his coffee. Hire us? As consultants. They want human experts to help them optimize their administrative systems and introduce controlled chaos into overly rigid societies. Lisa Carter laughed. They want to pay us to do what we've been doing anyway? Exactly. They're offering to make Earth the official efficiency improvement specialists for the entire Zephyrian Empire. The offer was extraordinary. Instead of conquest, the Zephyrians were proposing a partnership. They would pay humanity to help other species break out of bureaucratic stagnation and develop more flexible societies. Kate Williams had been analyzing the psychological profiles of the Zephyrian leadership. They're not the same people who arrived here 2 months ago, she reported. The stress of dealing with us has actually improved their mental flexibility. How so? They've learned to handle uncertainty. Before they met us, they could only function in completely predictable environments. Now they're adapting to chaos in real time. The transformation of the Zephyrian Empire was remarkable. Their rigid military structure was evolving into something more flexible and responsive. Ship captains were making independent decisions. Engineers were innovating instead of just maintaining. Even the lowest-ranking crew members were contributing ideas. Patricia Moore had become the most feared legal mind in galactic history. Her 2,000 legal challenges had forced the Zephyrians to completely rewrite their conquest policies. We can't just invade planets anymore, Admiral Kixvar explained to the Galactic Council. We need environmental impact studies, cultural sensitivity training, and stakeholder approval. Stakeholder approval? Yes, the people who live on the planet get to vote on whether they want to be conquered. The council chairman was confused. But if they vote no, how do we conquer them? We don't. We have to find another way to interact with them. The concept of voluntary membership in the Empire was unprecedented. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians were learning about diplomacy, negotiation, and mutual benefit, Carl Hughes, had completed his audit of the Zephyrian administrative system. His report was devastating. "Your bureaucracy is 73% inefficient," he announced. "You have 17 different departments doing the same job. Your filing system is so complex that it takes an average of 400 years to process a simple request. How? Do you suggest we improve it? Simplify everything. Eliminate redundancy. Create clear lines of authority. And for the love of all that's holy, switch to electronic filing." The humans began teaching the Zephyrians about modern administrative practices. They introduced concepts like one-stop service, customer feedback, and continuous improvement. The aliens were amazed by how much more efficient their empire could be. Alan, Price's technology sharing program had revolutionized Zephyrian engineering. The aliens were now updating their ships regularly, implementing new features, and even allowing crew members to customize their equipment. "They've discovered innovation," he reported to Earth. "For the first time in their history, they're creating new technology instead of just maintaining old technology." The cultural exchange between humans and Zephyrians had produced unexpected results. Nicole Adams watched as alien artists created their first works of fiction, music, and visual art. "They're becoming more creative," she observed. "Contact with humanity has awakened parts of their minds they never knew existed." The Zephyrians were learning about art, literature, and imagination. They were discovering the joy of creating something beautiful or meaningful instead of just functional. Rachel Grant's philosophy lessons had sparked a revolution in Zephyrian thinking. Millions of aliens throughout the Empire were questioning their assumptions, exploring new ideas, and making independent choices. "We've introduced them to the concept of free thought," she told the Emergency Council. "They're never going to be the same." The changes were spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species that had been conquered by the Zephyrians were demanding the same treatment that humans had received. They wanted legal representation, environmental protection, and cultural respect. Troy Nelson's request to speak with management had triggered a complete restructuring of the Zephyrian government. The Galactic Council was implementing new oversight, procedures, accountability measures, and citizen feedback systems. "We're becoming a democracy," Council Chairman Vixter admitted during a communication with Earth. "It's terrifying and exciting at the same time." The transformation was complete when High Imperator Zixthil submitted his final report to the Galactic Council. Instead of documenting a successful conquest, he was recommending a new model for interstellar relations. "The humans have shown us a better way," he wrote. "Instead of conquering other species, we should learn from them. Each civilization has unique strengths that can benefit the entire galaxy." The report went on to detail humanity's contributions to the Empire: administrative efficiency, creative thinking, legal oversight, technological innovation, and cultural enrichment. "I recommend that we offer the humans full partnership status in the Galactic Council," he concluded. "They have earned their place as equals, not subjects." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species had talked their way into the ruling council of an empire that had tried to conquer them. Jake Morrison was appointed as Earth's first galactic ambassador. His first official act was to propose the Universal Charter of Species Rights, guaranteeing that no planet could be conquered without the consent of its inhabitants. "Every species has the right to self-determination," he declared. "No one should be forced to join any empire or alliance." The charter passed by an overwhelming majority. The age of galactic conquest was over. The age of interstellar cooperation had begun. Years later, historians would struggle to explain how humanity had defeated the most powerful empire in the galaxy without firing a single shot. The answer was simple. They had won by being authentically human. They had used their creativity to confuse the aliens. They had used their stubbornness to overwhelm alien bureaucracy. They had used their curiosity to inspire alien innovation. They had used their empathy to teach aliens about cooperation. Most importantly, they had used their innate refusal to accept the way things have always been done to force an entire civilization to examine and improve itself. The Zephyrian Empire still existed, but it was no longer an empire of conquest. It had become a federation of voluntary members, each contributing their unique strengths to the common good. The galaxy was more diverse, more creative, and more interesting because humanity had refused to surrender. Lisa Carter, now serving as Earth's defense coordinator for the Galactic Federation, often reflected on the strange war they had won. "We didn't defeat them," she would tell visitors. "We made them better, and in the process, we made the entire galaxy better." The humans had proven that sometimes the best way to win a war is to convince your enemies that they don't really want to fight. They had turned conquerors into partners, enemies into friends, and an empire into a community. It was, without question, the most human victory in the history of the universe.